Morning, people. Good afternoon, friends. Happy Saturday to all of you. It was a solid week. It was a beautiful, productive week. We had decent moves, to be honest with you. Decent moves. Um, we caught the majority of the moves, apart from the Friday push to the downside, which was also revised properly before the precursor. So let's go over the charts. Let's have a look and let's dial the fuck in. Okay. For those of you who are obviously in my Discord handle, you guys know the results speak for themselves. Okay. I'm not really gonna go into the Discord handle, but I will leave the link. You guys can get yourself involved. Now let's start with the 4-point charts. Let's start with how the volume started to pick up. We saw a huge shift in volume just before NFP over here on Friday. For the week ahead, we do have CPI next week. CPI, PPI, and that's pretty much it. Wednesday and Thursday. I am also gearing up for the NFP move to obviously settle in by really taking some time out right now from the markets and using the weekend to prepare for the next, well, prepare for the entirety of the month. It's, May was a beautiful month, by the way. May was a very productive month. We had huge gold swings to the upside. Listen, if did buys on gold will always be valid, always. Yeah. Asia and London Delta push, New York carry. Asia and London continuation, Delta tap continuation. Asia and London Delta continuation. New York and Asia Delta inverse. Asia and London multi-session Delta inverse. New York and Asia Delta continuation. So you get the gist. You see the cycle here. Now what to expect for next week? Very simple. Unresolved inventory left behind at 4,520s. I am really dialing into how if you miss a short move like this, it's totally fine. You wanna intentionally skip the shorts and wait for dip buy flow. So once you start to see the dip buy flow, you get involved and then you take it from there. Obviously, we have Monday, Asia and London. It's all about looking at how Asia positions itself for the Asia and London multi-session Delta inverse. If not, it could also be an Asia and London multi-session continuation. It all depends on how Asia prints on Monday. New York has left unresolved inventory, so the 450 level is a magnet for the week ahead. So any session bases will be simply dip by flow. Okay. And even if you look at gold, over here, dip buys. Okay, you get that huge dip, buy risk free, dip buy risk free, dip buy risk free, dip buy multi-session carry, dip buy multi-session carry. So I have capitalized on pretty much all the moves. Okay, took longs from here, London literally at 4,513 push, New York push. Skipped the Asian move, skipped the London move, took longs from 4,450s, and I've shared all these trades on my Discord handle. Asia carried it. I skipped New York and I skipped Asia. I took London longs from here, closed out because they ran into the Delta candle. I took New York longs from here. Price came back. I took New York longs, took Asian longs, closed out, came back in the morning, took London longs, I missed them shorts because I got stopped out. Over here, took some longs. I missed them shorts because Friday before NFP, I stepped away from the markets and I told myself we had a very successful week in terms of mapping out how the sessions were playing out according to unresolved inventory, and that's pretty much it. Even here, beautiful longs from here. Delta, probe 1, probe 2. We held that 1,000 pip trade. Okay. We skipped Asia because I did say, look, allow Asia to print, and then we'll go longs when London opens up. That's exactly what we did, and we held that trade. Okay. We skipped the shorts here. We skipped New York. We skipped. So Wednesday was Wednesday was a day to skip, because obviously midweek reversal in play. So London was obviously, you can see huge push, but the flow wasn't messy. Okay, messy price action. So we allowed Asia to print, and then we took London longs, and then yeah, there you go. Even this week as well. Where is it? 18th of May onwards. I was traveling. I was in Sweden this week. Took London longs. I took New York longs. Came out. Took New York longs. Skipped Friday as I was out in Sweden. Dip by flows, my friends. Literally just dip by flows. You're allowing Asia to print, and then you capitalize on London moves. London will squeeze price action. Be careful. Be very vigilant when that happens. So you want to come back New York session or 12:30 onwards. As you can see statistically, if you make a note of this and if you track London session, you can see squeeze, 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 deliver. What? One session delivery after 4 days, and then we delivered. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. We delivered. So that's that. Over here, volume shift did not stop. It was a continuous auction. As you can see, the bids and asks were aggressively climbing the ladder. 902, 3K, 3K, 4K surge, 5K surge. Huge delta shift, by the way, minus 1K. And then price started to tank, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's that. You can see here aggressive shorts hitting the bid side, and the buyers cannot obviously lift price or even absorb the sellers. So the price started to tank. Literally just NFP drop. And this move is nothing, by the way. It's only a 1,000 pip move, which is what, 3% drop. It's actually nothing compared to how swing buys 800 pips, 2%. 800 pips, 2%. 4.8%, almost 5%, 2K pips. So you want to focus on dip buys. When you see gold drop, focus on dip buys. That's the plan. And if you can hold these trades towards 5K, 6K, and beyond, the target is 6.4K and beyond. The overall push to the downside was a 4-hourly delivery, 4-hourly sort of point of control. The 4-hourly delta, want to push below delta, carry, clearing last week's low, and that was the entire play, which I've covered in my previous recordings. I did say, look, we are in a weekly sort of 4-hourly delta play where price will tank. However, you want to focus on dip buys, and that is the plan. Nothing else. We can even look at over here, there is unresolved inventory left behind over here, 21st of April. So if you look at this, we broke the 1.27, we run. Okay, we broke the 1.27, we are inside the 1.27 handle. We should see some sort of reaction from here. If we don't see any reaction of that 1.27, there is unresolved inventory over here which is required. So for 250s, yeah, here, first session, first weekly low, downside breaches are pending. So once we get that breach one below 4248, price will start to rotate. Okay, and yeah, we can capitalize on these moves on the 15-minute time frame. There's always going to be moves you don't have to really forecast and predict so far ahead. There are always going to be moves for you to capitalize on. If you look over here, yeah, as an example, starting from, let's say Monday, yeah, starting from Monday, Asia and London continuation, cool. London and New York inverse, multi-session carry by Asia. So 600 pips to the downside, 800 pips to the upside, multi-session carry. Eradicate the part where you feel like you're gonna miss out a move, which is FOMO, fear of missing out, and start to dial in and really look at how I look at the markets. And I don't just sit here and I stare at my charts 24/7 to a point where I don't know what's going on. I'm looking at this on a mechanical sort of way. Session first low, 1, 2, breach 1. We need upside breaches in order to push lower. The New York session is a non-delta play. So what that means is that New York to replicate what London has done, but the discovery is pending. So New York has completed that push to the downside before revealing the discovery. So now what's left is the discovery, simply put. So we have specific levels and areas to target, which is in line with the market, but we have to wait for Asia to set itself up for London, and then we have to monitor London and then look at who's going to deliver. Is it going to be London or is it going to be New York that's going to deliver the move towards these unresolved inventory sort of areas that I've been talking about for a very long time, and I will be talking about it for a very long time, because this is how it is. If you're going to be so dialed in by just looking at candlesticks and price action and not understand how and why price is pushing to the downside, you're never going to understand the reasons behind the recovery. Okay, it's all part of the sentiment reset. Okay, we can even look at the volume shift over here, which doesn't really make a difference anymore, to be honest with you. What matters it now, what really matters now is that we focus on getting up in the morning as early as we can, map out the session. So, look at this. If you zoom in over here, you can see we've got Asia short. Asia's delta sits at 2 o'clock. London prints the first low, 1, 2. Upside breaches pending. So we get that breach 1, we get that breach 2. That breach 2 gets tapped. Asia high remains protected. Price pushes below delta. NFP pushes lower. We have 2 breaches pending for London. So the session prints breach 1 and breach 2. Okay, it doesn't really matter if the candle is 70 pips or 500 pips or 200 pips. What matters is that we are counting and monitoring the breaches below the first low. First low, 9:30, 9:45. Breach 1, 13:30. Breach 2, 13:45. Now the session times out, passes over to New York. New York prints the first low, 1, 2. We need 2 downside breaches. So we get the breach 1 here, 14:30. We get the breach 2, 14:45. The candle that breaks the breach 2, you can highlight it and you can use that candle to go longs or shorts depending on what really is happening. So price obviously breaks above, longs are valid from here. The candle that broke breach 2, longs are valid into upside breaches which are pending. above the first low and the first high. So, price pushes below the candle that broke the breach 2, taps that candle, 1, 2, push, push, push. So now what you should be doing is you should be looking at, okay, cool, we have unresolved inventory, 1, 2, 1, 2. It's going to be a multi-session play because the range from here to here is almost 1,000. Okay, it's actually 1,000 pip range, 2.3%. So now we know that Asia needs to set itself up so that London can obviously, you know, balance out Asia's inventory and then task itself up towards New York's inventory and then set itself up for that New York and London continuation, or London and New York inverse once the delta is printed. So, when you start to understand that in a mechanical way, we have space to trade. We can trade on Monday, or we don't even have to trade on Monday. We can even come back on Tuesday. We can even trade on Tuesday. We know that we've got CPI on Wednesday and Thursday. We can even wait for Wednesday for midweek reversals to push into these levels. And that's how you manage your dip buy flows, rather than trying to chase every small 200-300 pips. If you look at all my trades, it's minimum 700-800 pips minimum. This trade from here, I held 554 pips, closed that fully. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's minimum 5, 6, 7, 800 pips. Okay, like I don't even entertain myself. These moves, you see these small miniature moves, I don't even entertain myself into it. I simply wait for the actual. To be honest with you, I was longs from here. Held the entire trade, 800 pips. Easy. New week, we crack on. It's a job, it's a profession, You have to stay in line with the market and you move on. Nothing really changes. I'm not here to forecast. We are not here to forecast. We're here to allow the information here. We need this. We need this. We need all of this to trade, and that's what it is. Okay. So when Monday opens, very simple. You look at Asia's first low, first high, breach 1, breach 2. You look at if delta is there. Is it going to be a delta model, or is it going to be a non-delta model? Who knows? Once we get that, we tackle it. We take it. As it comes. That's all it is. I'm gonna leave it there for all of you, my friends, and we'll catch up on Monday onwards.